Hey everyone, welcome back to another Saltwater Edge YouTube video. Today I'll be tying another fly, this one a anchovy pattern, or just small baitfish pattern in general. I've used in the spring and it's worked, but generally it's an anchovy pattern, great for albies. The hook it's tied on is a small hook but very strong, so great for albies that time of year, but can really work anytime. I think sometimes they might mistake it for a little worm or a little squid. So pretty versatile, but with an anchovy in mind. You can switch up the colors. We'll be using calf tail today, which is a pretty great material. It's saves some of your bucktail, because if you want a shorter fly, it's great to use when you want bucktail, but you don't want to sort of cut off your long bucktail and waste some bucktail that way. So it's a good material, pretty easy to tie with, great for smaller stuff. You could use olive and turn this into a little silver side fly. We got plenty of colors to mix and match with, come up with some cool designs. But today we're going for anchovy. So I've got this NW Special, I think is what this color's called, and then a white. I've got Ripple Ice Dub in the pearl red hue, or just any pearl Ripple Ice Dub you could use. We got a couple options here at the shop. I've got Crystal Flash in the fluorescent orange. The eyes are the 3D holographic eyes in Super Pearl, size 5/32. The hook is the Gamakatsu SL12 short in a size 1. And the thread is just a shell pink thread. The 6/0 uni thread in rust works well too for this pattern. But today I'm going with the shell pink. I've got this sort of dubbing loop spinner, a pair of scissors, a little comb for the end, and some UV glue. That's about it. Pretty quick and simple tie. We'll get right into it. Alrighty, so we're just gonna go ahead and start our thread on the hook shank. Work it back to just behind the hook point. Snip that tag end, and then we're gonna grab our white calf tail and find a nice clump of white, about that much, maybe a little bit more. Nope. There we go, that looks good. So cut that at the base. Grab the tips and pull any of those little guys out of there. Then we don't want it too long. We're going for a smaller fly here. So about there's the length I want. I'm just gonna attach that to the hook shank with some wraps. And trim away the extra. And I'm gonna clean that up a little bit with my thread. And work my thread back to where that thread starts here. And I'm going to pull it long. We're going to make the dubbing loops. I'm going to pull the thread long, loop it back to the top here, couple wraps, and then work my thread forward to about there. I want to leave some space between that and the eye of the hook. So I'm going to leave my thread there, keep this loop open, take my dubbing loop spinner here, and just put that into the loop. Like so. Now I'm going to pull out the Ripple Ice Dub, and we're just going to fill this loop with some Ripple Ice Dub. This is going to make our body. So I'm just going to start feeding this into the loop. Usually like 3 or 4 healthy clumps is enough. There's 3. And I'll do 4 for good measure. And we're just going to spin it up. And use our rotary vise here and just wrap it down the hook shank to about there. And then lock that down with our thread. And we have quickly made a nice little body there. Yep. And I just sort of rough it up a little bit, try to pull everything back And clean it up. A couple wraps of the thread there. Looking good. So now we're going to take the other color. In this case, it is the NW Special color. And again, we're going to pull out a nice clump of long hair. Usually the long hair is going to be towards the top of the tail. So we're going to pull about that much from the tail. This step too, if you have a saddle and you got a lot of small feathers on it that you don't use too much, this is a great time to use one. If you have a color that goes with the pattern, you can just lay one right across the top here and then do this. Just add a little bit of movement, give it a nice lateral line. Just a good way to utilize some of the smaller feathers on a saddle. It's a good fly for it. But I'm just going to lay this calf tail color over the top here. That lined up with the white, maybe a little bit shorter. And just going to lash that down on top. Cut the extra away. I'm just going to clean up that head a little bit with a bunch of wraps. It's not going anywhere. Alrighty, so we got our two colors in there. Now I'm going to take some of the Crystal Flash in the fluorescent orange color. I'm going to cut 3 long strands and then just fold it over a couple times. So I'll end up with about 9. Listen. Fold it about twice. I'm going to lay that over the back of the fly. Just tie that on right over the back. Sure. Then clean up that head, get it covered in thread there. There we go. Now I'm going to take some UV. And with one hand, I'm going to pull everything back. And then with the other hand, I'm going to put a drop right on the top there. And I'm just going to use my bottle to push it down towards the back of the hook. And maybe one more drop. Make sure it's soaked in a decent amount. Maybe get it on the sides of the top color calftail a little bit. Just like that. And then hit it with the UV light. And now it's going to keep that thin profile in the water. But it's still got, you know, enough little movement there for the little swimming motion of the little anchovies. They don't need too much. Here we go. Just gonna finish off my thread with a couple half hitches. Get my thread out of the way. Come back in with the UV. And I'm just gonna put a little drop on one side. Little drop on the other. You can use these to just tack the eyes in place before I finish up the head. And again, these are the 5/32 size. You can use whatever size you want. Just a suggestion. I'm going to try to line them up on either side. Kind of give it the old eyeball test. They look pretty lined up. So I'm just going to hit it with the light quick and use those 2 drops of UV we put on to sort of tack them in place. like that. Come back in, and now I'm just filling in this head. So I've got the little gap between the eyes that's going to hold it, or hold this UV. To put a drop there. Going to fill in that gap around the head. Same thing on the bottom. And then hit it with the UV light. Give it a nice little rotisserie chicken rotation. That's nice and dry. And we've got our pretty easy tie anchovy fly. Again, I've used it in the spring. I don't know if they think it's a worm or a little squid or something, but it works. Obviously works when the anchovies are around. Great little pattern. Quick tie, pretty fun tie. I always like using the dubbing spinner. The calf tail's fun to use. It's got a lot of uses. Steve Cook always liked to use it as a throat for his flatwings. So I do recommend having some in your tool to pull out. You'll find a lot of uses for it. And there we have a nice little profile anchovy baitfish.